Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cards on the Table Hispanic Heritage Month edition. I'm so glad to see everyone here and to have your faces here. I'm really happy to be here. So this podcast will be serving as an opportunity for us folks of the Hispanic and Latinx community to share our experiences, to give your voice, not only as a Chico State student, but also as an individual, right? So we're going to discuss several topics and ideas, and I just want to thank y'all for sharing your voices again. But before we get started, I want us to do some introductions. So let's share our names, our ethnicity, nationality, and also very important, our pronouns. So let's get started. We can start to the left closest to our heart, and then we'll go around.
Yeah. So, hello everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Jordan Hernandez. I am Mexican, and my pronouns are he, him.
Hello, everyone. I'll be whispering today because, as you can tell, my voice is not the best. But I wanted to be here today and share my experience. My name is Jennifer Mendoza, and I'll go into whisper mode now. My name is Jennifer Mendoza. My pronouns are she and her. My parents are from Mexico. They're from Guerrero and Cancun, and I am first gen here at the United States. And my pronouns are, did I already say my pronouns?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Ash, she, her, hers. I'm also first generation. My parents are from Mexico.
Hi everyone, my name is Mayrid. She, hers pronouns. My parents are from Mexico. And yeah.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Melise. My pronouns are they, them. I'm also first gen. My parents come from the Dominican Republic.
Hi everyone, my name's Marianne. My pronouns are she, they. My nationality is Mexican. I moved here around 2008, I want to say. And what was the other? I think that's everything. Yeah.
Nice to meet y'all. So I'm Ana Marquez. I am Mexican. My family is from Sinaloa and Guadalajara, and my pronouns are she, hers. So nice to meet y'all. I'm really glad to see you. And before we get started again, we're just gonna set some ground rules. So I work at the CCLC as a paraprofessional, and one of the ground rules that we have there is Mighty Mouse. If you've ever been to the CCLC or you've ever gone to a program, you probably heard of Mighty Mouse. But Mighty Mouse is a symbol for courage. He was a character who showed bravery. He was there to be justice and to things that he believed in. And one thing me and Haley were talking about when she was talking to me about this program was creating a safe space, right? But I told her, I was like, there's no guarantee of a safe space, especially in a place where we're going to be recorded. It's kind of not very safe. Maybe you're a little nervous, right? But I just ask y'all that you come here today, you show bravery like Mighty Mouse did, and let's create this space as a brave space, I can't guarantee that somebody's not going to take what you said here today and share, because it is going to be shared, right? So just ask y'all that show courage, bring stories, and just be authentic to who you are. So before, we continue with that, I want to also say community guidelines. Community guidelines are something that we create as a group. Here right now, we're a community, and I want us to together create community guidelines for today's talk. Does anybody have anything they want to share? It could be anything as like don't judge, or it could be anything that y'all want to bring here today so that we can keep in mind as we go into our conversation.
Yeah, probably just being respectful of like everyone's experiences. Like even though we're all Latinx, we come from like different places, different backgrounds. So just respect, and I think that won't be a problem.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for bringing that up. That's very true.
I'll say one. I would say take up some space, because I know myself, I'm feeling like some imposter syndrome being here.
Yeah.
But this is why we're having spaces like this, right? So I encourage y'all to just keep taking up space here.
Exactly. That's a very good point. My boss always says, like, we're always used to, pushing ourselves aside for anybody else who comes into our space, but take up space. You need to come into this room and say, this is me, I deserve to be here, and I'm here for a reason, right? So, good point.
I would add to be supportive. It takes a lot of courage to be able to say and share experiences. So always be supportive at the end of the day.
Yes, exactly. So thank you for bringing that up, Jenny. That's a great point. Okay, awesome. So we're going to get started. There are some little questions on the table set aside for us. We can start wherever, if anybody wants to pick out a question, and we'll just get this conversation going.
Hey y'all, my name is Maridit again. My question says, what do you hope to see for future generations in your community? Definitely a safer place to be. I feel like, when I was young, for those of you who don't know, I'm from Paramount, SoCal. Paramount has had a couple of like past generations with like gang violence, and so one thing that I would like to see for the future, is just like, obviously not forgetting those roots, because I feel like those roots are also important. I mean, it's sad, but I feel like we should be able to learn from that and not completely forget about it. So I feel like safety for our community. Also, just like, I feel like gentrification sometimes is not the answer, and I feel like a lot of the times, we want to make communities nice, we want to make communities, safer, as I said, but a lot of the times, sometimes just making our communities better and safer doesn't mean making them nicer. Sometimes it just means more resources, better, community bonding experiences, and just getting to know like more of our community and ourselves.
That's a really great answer, Mare. You touch on like a lot of important things. Like, I feel like I want to see future generations like being unapologetic in who they are, in their identity, being able to present however way they present without getting pushback from either people outside of our community or even within our own community. And especially like coming from Southside Stockton, I see the gentrification coming, and I'm like, wow, like, if we were to like give these kids like better resources, like a better gym, a better like place for them to just exist and hang out, it would really make a difference. And hopefully that happens for future generations.
Yeah, I definitely want to uplift what Mare and Marian said about creating safer communities for our spaces. I'm old. I assume I'm older than some of y'all. I'm in my 30s, and for me, I would like to see like more acceptance for queer folks in our communities. Growing up, I was not accepted by my mother for being queer. I feel like it is getting a little bit easier, but there's still some hardships. And so I would really like to see more safer communities for queer folks in our communities.
Yes, that's a great point. I just wanted to thank y'all for bringing those points up. They're very great points, and I agree with all of y'all with everything that you said. And I just wanted to ask, why do y'all think that there is, such a hard acceptance for queer folks in our community?
I think we have a lot of internalized like problems within our culture where like the patriarchy has really affected the way we see like families and the way we see like relationships just in general. Like even from a little, like being a young person, I remember like always getting that idea pushed on to me, like a relationship is between a man and a woman, and like anything outside of that is just wrong. It goes against our religion. I know a lot of like Latinx people are Catholic, so I feel like that could be part of it. Like growing up, I had that whole internal struggle, like I'm trying to figure out myself and who I am, but religion is telling me like a completely different thing. So I feel like colonialism and religion really did a number on our community, and it takes a lot to try to like break that down, and I hope we do eventually, because the homophobia and the transphobia is just not it, and it only like ostracizes like people from our community, like family members that should be accepted by us. And like, yeah.
Awesome.
What is one thing you wish you could change about your community? I feel like there's quite a few things I would like to change, like what we talked about, like being queer in like the Latinx community or Hispanic community. My parents were very like Catholic and Christian growing up, so I kind of struggled a lot with my identity, and like I also currently don't feel like I have a safe space at home to kind of like be who I am. So it is like I wish I could change a lot about like acceptance for like queer, trans folk, and also just the experiences that people think like certain skin tones are better than others. Like I know I'm very white passing and I'm very light skinned, so like I don't really have I guess like I shouldn't really have a say on that, I feel, because I don't know, I don't really feel like
Yeah.
very
I
Hispanic, I
saying,
guess,
yeah.
because of how I look. But I know my parents look a lot at skin tone and thinking that light-skinned folk are better than like, like more like moreno skinned, like darker skin. So I just wish that there wasn't that like colorist
Mentality. Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, I definitely see that. There's a lot of colorism in our community, with white passing folks or with darker skinned folks. So I do understand that, and you brought up a lot of great points. I appreciate you sharing your experience because I know it must have been hard.
I'm gonna whisper. For myself, I think that when my parents migrated, they faced, a different culture in terms of like Western culture. So I'm, Mexican. Our culture is very like family oriented, very family centralized, and coming to like a country that's not, it's more like individual. I think a lot of first generation or like dreamers or those that come from our similar backgrounds that were raised here sometimes start facing this like culture mix up where it's very difficult to identify with like the traditions that our parents carry, but the westernized culture we've adopted, and it's very difficult to eventually like try to keep the same traditions, but some of those traditions are a bit machista, or they're a bit insensitive to a lot of different groups that we've eventually embody. So I definitely would say that one thing I wish our community could change as a whole would be just in general, like trying to identify and combine the existence of like Western culture with our like indigenous culture and learning our traditions and keeping those traditions. But then it's that like identity crisis where you're like, wait, this is a little colorist, this is a little machista. So like learning how to identify that, I think has been a huge struggle, and I would like to see that change in our community.
Yes, us too. It's hard too, just because you were raised a certain way, and then you feel like maybe you're betraying where you're from or what your family has taught you. But then there's such a thing as growth, right? You're growing as a person. You're going to school. You're going to classes. Maybe some of us here are like sociology majors, psychology majors. I heard some poli-sci majors, and your mentality changes. Or you meet people and you're like, dang, like I grew up, like I was thinking these things as a younger child, and now as an adult, it's your views change, right? So it's hard, and then you go back home, and then you have to deal with family members who probably don't think the same way as you, or they have homophobia or transphobia or that machista mentality, like, okay, like serve food for your parents or whatever, and it's hard, and then where to draw the line, right? So I think you bring up a great point as well too.
Kind of piggybacking off of what Jenny said with the Western culture and our indigenous culture, I personally myself was raised by my mother, my single mother, and my older sister was kind of like a second mother to me. So I didn't really get much of that machismo. I was always kind of raised to like respect women and treat women equally and fairly. But it was kind of hard for me to really know my roots, because when my parents separated, I never visited Mexico anymore. Since I was young, and I was kind of raised on like Western culture, like through high school stuff. And when I came here, it was interesting to see being partnered. Well, I actually am a first generation student, just like many of y'all. But I'm part of a first generation program called SSS Trio, and I met a bunch of people who are like part of my culture. And it was interesting to be partnered with them and seeing everything that I was kind of in a sense should have been raised with. But learning these things like my freshman year and sophomore year, the music, like all the events, like Los Muertos, I knew that was a thing, but I never really partook ever since like that split. So being up here really, I would say, exposed me to that, and it was interesting because I went from listening to hip hop and rap to like corridos and banda. So it was I don't know, it's a really cool thing, and I'm just really glad it happened. But I guess in a sense I'm thankful for that, for college, for bringing us.
That's amazing.
But yeah.
Yes, that's amazing. I'm glad that you got that exposure to your culture and to your roots and to who you feel like you can connect with. So we're going to move on to our next question. I believe it's Jenny's turn. Yeah.
I'm a whisper again. Okay. What organizations on campus have helped you feel included and are properly represented? Well, I So I've been part of many organizations. Like Jordan mentioned previously, we're in the same cohort for Trio SSS. So definitely being part of a first generation college program, college track program, has helped me in ways that I honestly could have never thanked them enough for. My freshman year out here in Chico, my parents also got divorced, and being first gen, it was just culture shock. I'm actually from Oakland. Shout out to the Bay. I'm actually from Oakland, so that was a huge, culture shock coming up here and like trying to identify what my career goals consisted of while maintaining that, trying to identify who I am as a whole. So I would definitely say like first gen support programs, and then my sophomore year, there was a new space on campus that opened up where I work at. Shout out to Star Center if y'all want to come pull up. The Star Center is also a retention program for a lot of women of color and men of color on this campus. I also partook in a lot of the CCLC events, which have connected me to some amazing and beautiful people. Not only that, but I think just being in spaces where I thought I didn't belong got me in contact with so many other people that felt that same way in those spaces, and you start creating a community from that in and of itself. And I would say one of those spaces was just Flow as a whole. Flow is the freshman leadership opportunity I started to join because I had a couple friends that joined it, but it's primarily white, so we didn't necessarily feel in place. But seeing mentors that also resembled our experience, such as Haley, she's behind the camera if y'all can't tell, such as Haley, and just other friends that have allowed me to like understand what it means to take space in spaces that you don't think you belong in. I think that's where some of the best friendships lie. Not only that, but I'm also part of a multicultural sorority, and it's the first generation, first Latina sorority established in the nation. And I think that has really allowed me to understand the history of struggles of Latina women on campus since dating back, since women were allowed to go to school. So I think just being part and like opening yourself up to try new experiences, even though you don't feel like you might be welcomed, take up that space. That doesn't matter. You show up. You show them you're there. You show them you got it like that.
Thank you for sharing. Awesome points. I love them.
Yeah, I feel like the CCLC has definitely been one of them. I remember, coming from SoCal, like I was used to waking up Saturday morning to like the whole street playing Elvis Crespo, and so coming here, and it was just like crickets. Yeah, like, I was just like, what? Like it was a huge culture shock to me, and like I am a very family-oriented person, and so being away from my family for the first time, 8 hours away because I'm from LA, like it was very hard for me. And so when I found the CCLC, like I lived in the CCLC for like a whole good year. And then after that, like the CCLC introduced me to LIAS, which is Latinas in Action. And then I was like, oh my God, I love nature. And then from there, I just kind of met, I met people that, we built these like long-term relationships with, and like they do make your college experience a lot better. And so, I feel like the CCLC is definitely one. The Star Center is definitely one. But I feel like it's a little sad that, I found it because I had friends that would go there. But I feel like it's really sad to see and hear the fact that, like, a lot of the times it's through word of mouth. So it's like, hey, you should go to the CCLC or you should go to the Star Center. As opposed to other spaces on campus, I feel like, sometimes they're plastered everywhere. And I feel like we do lack certain representation and certain like marketing, I guess. Because like, yes, even though we are, I guess, a smaller population, I guess, of the school, like we still pay tuition here. Like we should still be able to take up space because we are coming to this campus. Like we do pay the fees, like we are contributing to the diverse, theme that this school is trying to put up. Like we make up the school too. So I just feel like it would be nice that if the school, instead of saying like only using us for posters, I guess would make a better effort to open up these spaces and like, like kind of give us more resources. Like why do we only have to be in the basement of the like library? Like why can't we be more wide on the open? I don't know. I just feel like that's
That's a great point.
And we're in HSI now.
Yes.
We're an HA study.
Yeah,
So we're Hispanic.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
We are.
So we just became a Hispanic institution 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get the ball rolling.
Yes, and they have a
Yeah.
lot of scholarships too for students who are in those programs.
So we have the numbers. Let's get the resources now.
Exactly, exactly. I wanted to share my experience actually for this question. So I'm from El Centro, which is kind of like a border town to Mexicali, which is like 12 hours away, 14 with traffic. So when I'm a transfer student. So when I transferred here, I was like a complete culture shock. And it was during COVID. So I didn't know anyone. I was completely like lost. Like I only knew one person, and that was my boyfriend. And it was really hard for me to say, okay, how am I gonna connect to campus? Like, who can I meet? Like, how am I gonna meet people, right? And I was just like, kind of imposter syndrome. Like, what am I doing here? Should I even be here? And also just like, okay, how do I get the ball rolling, right? One thing, it was hard to look for like people and organizations that represented me. And not until like during that moment there was like recruitment going on for like multicultural organizations. So, you know, I want to say like that really helped me a lot to connect with people who look like me, who talk like me, who, you know, went through the same experiences as me. So I'm part of Zeta Sigma Chi, which is a multicultural organization, and it got me connected to a lot of alumni and sisters here who are in Chico State, and that was just one great way. And then, you know, I started applying to on-campus jobs, and I got to know a little bit about the STAR Center, about CCLC. The CCLC is a cross-cultural leadership center. If anybody hasn't gone, we're still trying to build outreach because a lot of students, yes, a lot of students don't know, or they're here and they're like, okay, like what now? And it's exactly what you said, you know, like, where are the resources? Like, where's the marketing for this? And we're trying our best, but we also need the help because students are lost. I mean, people from LA, we have a lot of students who are from SoCal, and it's a complete culture shock coming here, especially if you're from a border town, if you're from San Diego, from San Luis Obispo, like wherever you're from, like it's hard. So yeah, like everything that you said, Jenny, Star Center, Flow, CCLC, come out, look into them because they're here for you and they serve a purpose, and the students make up the space. Don't be afraid to take up that space.
Mecha too.
Yeah, Mecha too. And now a lot of multicultural orgs are on campus. We're having Wildcat Vibe October 13th, so pull up. There's gonna be a lot of multiculturalism there. But yeah, does anybody else want to answer the question too?
It was.
Like orgs on campus that made you feel like more included.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll piggyback off a bunch of what y'all mentioned. Y'all mentioned a bunch of organizations that you know, have done the same for me. So first generation organizations on campus, the CCLC, the Star Center, they're all awesome. But I think for me personally, the biggest organization that really you know, made a difference in my life was CAVE. And it was necessarily not because of I shared the same experiences or the same, you know, race as the people there. It's that we shared the same goal and wanting to do good in the community and make a difference. Ever since high school, I always volunteered. Big Brothers Big Sisters, it's a program where you go into elementary schools as a high schooler and you tutor some kids. And we have a program just like that here in CAVE. So wanting to make the difference, I guess, for me was what really called my attention. But yeah, so CAVE, first generation program, CCLC, anything that wants to, you know, help people and just do better.
Yes. So we'll move on to the next question. I think it's you, Jordan.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see what we have here. How do you find power in diversity? I think this is actually a really good question. I firmly believe that having different people from different backgrounds all over the world is probably one of the best things you can do. Reason being is that everybody thinks differently. Everybody has had different experiences. Different experiences can give you different ideas and at some point different solutions for certain problems. So I strongly believe in diversity. It's the best way to, you know, get to know so many different areas of the world with a single person. That's my take on that question. Does anybody else want to expand?
I can expand on it. Okay, so technically where I'm from, Stockton, I think last year or maybe the year before that, we were like named the most diverse city in the US. So I feel like on diversity, I got a pretty good grasp on it. It actually was really, like, I'm really thankful that when I moved to the States, my parents took us to Stockton, just because there was people from all types of backgrounds, and I just grew up with them. Like, you grow up with them in school, you see them in your neighborhoods. So even if you don't have the same, like, lived experiences, you hear about their experiences, and it just makes you a better person. Because, like, let's say maybe I wasn't, like, explicitly, like, discriminated against, because, like, in Stockton there is a huge, like, Mexican population or Latinx population in general, but I could hear from my classmates about their experiences. So I feel like finding power within diversity is, like, really cool, because you can become an advocate for other people or just be an ally. Like, it makes you a better ally. You get to, like, kind of see different perspectives and try to work on it and, like, make the world a bit of a less, like, bad place. Like, that culture shock was definitely, like, there when I moved to Chico. I was like, hold up, where did everybody go? I was like, I don't know what's going on, but yes. I feel like, you know, we find our spots on campus where you see the diversity, and it's like, it probably does make this university stronger.
Yes.
I'll agree with what Marianne said about how, like, especially, like, for me, I come from, like, the South Bronx. I'm from New York City, and, like, when I came to Chico, I'm like, there's so many white people here. And, like, the moment, like, I found the CCLC and the Star Center and, like, all these other, like, multicultural orgs, that's where I found myself, like, oh, I have a voice, and, like, it is powerful, and then we uplift each other's voices too. And how Marianne said, like, we learn to, like, advocate for each other, we become allies, and it's just, like, to me, it's, like, almost like family.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'll pick a question. Okay. What stereotypes have you encountered? I think moving to Chico a lot, probably. Like, I think I used to think I wasn't very visibly brown, or, like, that people took me in as a brown person or a person of color. And then I came here and I was like, oh, definitely you do, like, present that way. Like, I don't know. People, like, when they hear I'm an immigrant, they, like, assume that I'm undocumented. Not that that's a bad thing. Not that it's any of their business either way. They assume that, I don't know, my parents are uneducated or things like that, or that I'm uneducated, and I'm like, come on, we're at the same school. Like, so yeah, just, like, kind of like what you hear from, like, the media and stuff about, like, people who come from Mexico. Like, people are always asking me about cartels back home and, like, violence, and they're like, oh, is that why you left? And it's like, oh, ouch. Like, you know, even though it may or may not be applicable, it was really shocking to, like, hear people, like, boldly talk to me that way, because back home it wasn't really a thing, because it was just like, we all come from different backgrounds. This is supposed to be, like, the nation of immigrants, so you kind of just accept people and you don't ask. But here was definitely, like, a whole different perspective. I don't know if anybody wants to add on what stereotypes they've encountered.
I can add some. So from my experience, I'm from New York City, and, like, there are more Dominicans over there that look like me. When I come here, like, I get second guessed a lot about my Latinx identity. When I worked retail, you know, I had, like, I'm sorry, I think I'm nervous, but I've had folks, like, you know, I can hear them speaking Spanish, and, like, I want to, like I'm listening, I can translate, but then they'll send, like, their kids, like, oh, like, and they'll talk to me in English. Or if they hear me speaking Spanish, they go, oh my goodness, when did you learn Spanish? You sound so great at it. You know, I was like, oh, I've been speaking Spanish since I was, like, a kid. You know, I was in ESL. Spanish is my first language. Yeah. You know, and so, like, that's the kind of stereotypes I've encountered, where, like, people, like, don't think I'm Latinx, you know, or they think my hair is fake. It's, like, stuff like that. And then in dating, like, I've had people like, oh, you're, like, a spicy Latina and shit sometimes from, like, white folks. And I'm like, yikes, no, bye.
Yikes.
But yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else like to answer or add on to that?
Let me tell y'all, my freshman year, I really got told, oh my gosh, you're so smart. Like, just to my face. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am I not? But I think just, like, facing those stereotypes also, like, as women, being in an institution, like a higher ed institution, right now, thankfully, the percentage for women being in higher education is greatly more significant than anyone else. But I remember when I first got here, and like whenever I saw someone that looked like me or someone I knew, it was like the cleaning lady at SSC, or it was like, like it was never in a professor type of way. And I think like one of the biggest stereotypes we foresee or I've like faced is just like that they think there's a lack of knowledge there, or that there's a lack of professionalism, because I am from Oakland and I have that side, but at the same time, learning how to code switch and learning how to, maneuver that space is not taught, like specifically not as a whole. We as people of color a lot of times have to learn that. So I think just that stereotype of we're not as smart definitely hurt, and definitely is a huge thing to overcome, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it is great. It's a big struggle. I don't know if any of y'all face that, but let me know.
Yeah, or I feel like, I don't know, for me, I've gotten, you're like fiery. That's the Latina side in you. And I'm like, no, that's the passionate side of me. Like, that's not because I'm Latina. It's because, I mean, maybe I got it from my mom, but still, like, like it's not that I'm fiery, or it's not because, I don't know, I eat chili every day on the weekend. Like, it's because, we're passionate about these things. It has nothing to do with, ethnicity or race. It's because you care about a topic, and that's why you are so passionate about it. Or sometimes like people saying like, oh, you're so loud, and it's because you're, and I'm like,
That part.
what do you mean? I'm like, are you not loud when you get excited? Like, what do you mean? I don't know. I feel like that's definitely another stereotype where I'm like, okay. I don't know.
And a lot of people do mistake passion with like being angry, right? Like, it's like, what is the correlation? I'm just being passionate. This is something I care about, and I'm not being loud. I'm just taking up the space that I deserve to take up, right?
Yeah,
so,
just like anybody else.
Yes. I love that. You guys are amazing. So we're gonna move on. We can still go around. I think it's
Yeah, I think it's Mandy's turn.
Yeah. Do you feel your appearance has affected your experience? Yes, absolutely. Like like I said earlier, I get second guessed a lot. People don't clock me as Latinx unless I tell them. And even sometimes, like, I'll say, I'm Dominican. They'll be like, you mean from Dominica? And I'm like, no, Dominican Republic, And like, I do face some colorism. I have faced some colorism before. I used to live in Gridley when I first came to California, and like, I was definitely not treated like well-ish. People would just kind of like, I've had like white ladies kind of like go away from me. They'll clutch their purse while they're next to me. Like, it's some hostility sometimes, but yeah.
And I do want to say that it's no secret that we live in a very different area, which is why we have that culture shock when we move here. Just the city, not just the city of Chico, but the county in general. I can totally, I would just say that I can agree with you on that, and I totally see why that would happen to you, and I'm really sorry that did happen to you, because nobody deserves that kind of treatment here. Would anybody else like to answer the question?
I'd like to go. Like I said, I'm very white presenting, and I do have a lot of different experiences. Like, I usually am not looked at very differently, I feel. The only thing is that my parents are like very brown, and they have like a lot more skin tone and melanin than I do. And I've always been kind of an anxious person, so every time I go somewhere, I have my dad with me just to like for comfort, and he just kind of like follows me around. But because of that, and he's like older and he's a little bit like slower walker than me, so we kind of get looked at funny, almost like if he's like, I don't know, like a predator almost, like following me. But I always have to like, like stop, slow down, go back, just so like we can stand side by side, and like people don't like look at us funny. And like, they've also had experiences where we're from SoCal, I'm from Baldwin Park, and they went to Big Bear, like my parents and my sister, and there's like a lot of like white people, and they were just kind of looking at my parents funny, like, why are you here? You don't belong here, even though they were just like trying to have like a day in the snow and stuff. So like, I feel like very bad for like my parents and everything like they've gone through, and like everything they continue to go through, just for like us or my family and first generation siblings to have the future we have now.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely have like two different experiences when I go out with just my dad, who is a very visible like brown man, and when I go out with my mom, who is like lighter skin, straight hair, like colored eyes. We definitely like we get just different looks, different experiences. Like my dad's constantly being pulled over. Like I think he was pulled over even once here in Chico, and he was just dropping me off, and I was like, I just want to get to my dorm. Like, please let us go. But yeah, and I feel like for me, like my appearance does like affect the way like people treat me. Like, I present as a very like feminine person, and even that in itself is a whole dynamic. Like, am I being treated like this because of the way that I present or the way that I'm dressing? So it definitely has like affected me, and I just try to like take it in and just analyze it and know that it's not me, it's them and their perceptions of like what they think of like people who look like me or people who look like my dad.
Yes, thank you for bringing that point up. I think it's not just the way that we look, like what you said, it's also the way we dress. I remember when I was a kid, I used to go with my dad would pick me up from school, and he would just get out of like the fields or whatever, or like from construction, right? And he would be dressed like in dirty pants, a dirty shirt, and people would like automatically assume, because I don't know, people would see us like at the store, we'd go to Walmart, we'd go pick up something, or we had to go buy like something for dinner, and it just, you know, I don't know, people look at you weird too, like, what are you doing here? Why are you dressed like that? Why do you look so dirty? And, you know, as a kid, I didn't know any better. I would just be like, you know, am I embarrassed, or, you know, but also I think with our parents, how we carry, you know, how they look too also affected us growing up in the way that we saw things. And so, would anybody else like to add on?
I would like to add on the topic of like colorism it seems like a reiterating topic that keeps popping up, and I think it is, especially in our community, it's very prevalent. I'm personally, you know, I love my skin now. I can say that confidently, but I think growing up, it was definitely like, it played such a huge role in not only how people foresaw me, but how I saw myself. And I think like with I know, Melise, you have curly hair. A lot of us have curly hair. Majority of us have curly hair. Even that, you know, like having to straighten it to try to fit into that norm, into the whatever we thought was the beauty standard. So I definitely think, I'll start whispering again. I'll definitely think like growing up in a Latinx community or like a diverse community, although it was empowering to see others like you, the beauty standard wasn't always you. And I think that messed up and played a huge role in how we saw ourselves and carried ourselves even through college, even through these years. Just because, you know, for me, I'm a little darker, but I didn't think much of it now. But back in the day, you know, I wished I was lighter, you know, straight hair. So I definitely want to say like play on that type of role and how you identify yourself and see yourself. And I think also for just other communities, like the queer community, those that wear makeup, like getting those type of looks, getting ostracized by, you know, society as a whole. I think it plays a huge role, and also the self-worth and value you put yourself at. But like trying to move past that, like you mentioned, trying to remember that those views are something that other people have of you, not the one you give to yourself.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I think it can be really easy to like internalize things, especially things like colorism. Like when you were talking, I was just remembering when I was younger, like I really did wish I had lighter skin like my mom, and like there were creams, and there was like, don't go out in the sun, wear long sleeves, and it was like, you know, that's really damaging. And going back to one of the earlier questions, like we said, I feel like that is something that should really change within our community, because it took up until college for me to like be okay with how I looked. And I was like, that's kind of sad, because, you know, most of us, we're kids when we're hearing these like types of comments, and they're not okay.
Absolutely. Exactly.
I'd like to touch on it a little bit. It was interesting because everyone's kind of saying the opposite of how it was for myself and my personal experience. Growing up, I've had those jobs too. I've gone to the fields. I've been at packing houses and whatnot. And for me, it was kind of the opposite. they would be like, oye, güerito, like, ¿qué haces aquí? Or like, you know, what are you doing here? You're gonna get your skin burned from being in the sun and in the heat. This is actually the lightest I've ever been. I'm from Fresno, California, the Central Valley. So if you're from the Central Valley, shout out to you. This is the lightest I've ever been. Growing up, I've always been like in the sun. I've always been like a lot more tan. So coming up here and not being in the sun anymore and just like seeing my skin turn really like light was kind of shocking to me. I was kind of surprised. People assume that I don't speak Spanish sometimes. Sometimes people don't even think I'm Mexican. I think one time someone told me like, "Oh, what are you, like Egyptian?" And I'm like, I don't even know what. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what an Egyptian looks like. But yeah, it's like the opposite for me. People don't assume I know Spanish. When I do, it kind of catch them off guard. Kind of like you mentioned that you do too. But about appearances, I do remember one point. I know you're mentioning your grandpa, or was it your dad? Your dad. So my experience was at a hotel. It was in LA. It was in a kind of pretty bougie area. We were at a hotel, and my grandpa, he's like pretty old. He actually turned 84 yesterday, so. Shout out to my gramps, 84. He turned 84 yesterday, but one time we were at a hotel in LA, and we were pulling up the cars, and I was busy loading up the car, and my grandpa's a little old. Sometimes he gets confused. He accidentally got into the wrong car, and this like 6'2" like white gentleman was just like, hey, like that's my car. What are you doing? And it's like he got into the back seat. He wasn't even like in the driver's seat or anything like that, but he totally flipped out. When I heard him flip out on my grandpa, I kind of just lost it, and I just dropped the bags and I like rushed the guy. And I remember the valet kind of stopped me. He's like, "Hey, homeboy, calm down, calm down." And then he called me homeboy, and I was like, "Whoa, like, you know, is he assuming just like, you know, from my race and whatnot?" But I don't know. It's scary to think about that. If my grandpa was like, you know, Caucasian, would it just been like, "Oh, sir, are you confused?" Instead of like, you know, screaming his head off, freaking out. That was one of the experiences where I was like, "Whoa!" Like, you know, people see you differently based on your skin tone. It was a really real experience. But that's what I have for that question.
Thank you for sharing, Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. Good. Sorry, I just wanted to say something really quick. Like, even though these are experiences that we've like seen and like visually like witnessed, like I guess just for like these two instances, there's also like a lot I feel that like our parents and our grandparents don't tell us that they've experienced. So like even if the you know, like I've only seen like two instances, but I just feel like there's so much more that like our parents and grandparents and like older generations that have gone through that they don't tell us about, that they don't want us to fear for them. But it's something I think about a lot, and like I wish that they were more open about like their experiences and their struggles, even though like America's supposed to be like the land of opportunities. Like it's a struggle and not just, you know, something that we get right away, I guess.
Yeah.
Girl, that's generational trauma right there. Let me just say, because literally the same fear you say, like, it gets passed on, and as much as, you know, a lot of that fear for our older generation, especially those that are, you know, aren't residents, don't have papers here. It's that fear of also leaving, getting separated from your family. And, you know, I'm sure for a lot of us, even those listening, that was a huge concern growing up. Like, my parents personally, they didn't have papers. So, like, having a backup plan, or what do you do if you get pulled over type of thing. That, like, eventually, too, gets passed on. And I just found this out, like, a couple months ago. But my great-grandma was Peruvian. She went from, like, to Mexico. She migrated because of a war or something like that. And, you know, I was just thinking of that, her trauma, and how she's in my bloodline. Like, that trauma gets passed on in the same way, in the same experiences we feel on a different level. But we definitely have it shared, and it's a shared trauma from those instances. So I just wanted to bring that up real quick because you reminded me of that.
And that kind of goes back to like one of the other questions, like what do you want to change in your community? There's a lot of untold stories and a lot of things that we don't share. Our parents don't share, our grandparents, our great grandparents, right? And then it's like whoa, like what have they gone through? Like if I've gone through this, what have they gone through when, you know, my parents are darker than me? Like what have they gone through, and what have they faced in workspaces or in school? So it does kind of break my heart. I don't like to think about it too much, but it's there, and it is generational trauma. And there's things that they've dealt with that they probably don't want to share to hurt us, but also because they've also kind of internalized it with themselves, and it's just hard. And I would like for our community to talk more, communicate with each other and share and heal together, exactly, because there is so much that is just, we could have a whole other conversation about this, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
She said next episode.
Part 2. But yeah, so if anybody else wants to add anything, we'll move on to our next question. I think we could go back around this way.
Okay.
What are some traditions you and your family had growing up? Oh my gosh, we had so many. I guess like a tradition we have growing up, for us, Christmas is a big thing. The presents, but like, for me, it's not really the presents. I don't really care much about the presents. For me, it's the tamales. Like, I know that once Christmas time comes, I'm like I have to make space in my like fridge and like my freezer, 'cause, like, I love it. But it's not really also like the food, right? It's like the making the tamales, the memories that you make in making the tamales. I have, as much as I hate it, like having to burn my fingers with the little like banana leaves. I feel like it's definitely the relationships and the memories that go into making the tamales. For me, definitely another tradition would probably be, I feel like just like that one, Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, building our little ofrenda for all the loved ones that have passed away. I feel like that one's also one of my favorites, just because, I mean, it's funny and it's nice because we know that they are here, they're here with us all the time. And so like, it's just funny to see, like, to me, younger generations, like my little cousins who don't know why we put the bread out, who don't know why we put, the gancitos out, like going in there and sneaking a bite, like it's like, it's funny, but at the same time, like you're sitting there going like,
wait a minute,
great grandpa's gonna come pull your legs when yeah. But like, I don't know, it's just like heartwarming to keep telling their stories and to remember them like as the years go by. Yeah, just feel like it's nice.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I would say, like Dia de los Muertos is probably my favorite. I think it wasn't until my grandpa passed away until I really like took in the tradition and was like, okay, this is really important. Like, I need to talk to him. So like, this is the day to do it, or like a better day to do it, because like you're surrounded by family. There is an offering out, so maybe they're more likely to come and see us. So yeah, and like what Mare was saying, just passing it on. Like, my youngest sister was born here, so she didn't get like that experience of being back home, like in our home country, and like seeing the whole cemetery filled with people just like there to visit their loved ones who have passed. So it was nice to like be able to like reclaim that and continue it here, even though we're not back home. We can still put out an ofrenda and teach her about the things, and we're like, come on, because when we're gone, you better put our pictures up.
It better be a nice one too.
Yeah, I'm like, let me give you some options. Nah. But yeah.
Can I add something really quickly? I know for that, there's some folks that, grew up without like a background, like a family that connected them to their roots, and maybe they don't have traditions. I know for myself, once I moved out here and, things happen, you get estranged from your family, or for whatever reason, you don't want to be around toxicity.
Yeah.
But like a reminder that it's okay for you to learn your own culture and bring those traditions and start them for yourself. Because for the longest, I felt so guilty not engaging, like for traditions that I had with like, my family as a whole. But I figured, why not start them myself? Like, I'm still part of my own family, and I still have that culture. So I think just for anyone that's listening that, doesn't have, or, has been adopted, or just doesn't have that cultural, like, context, like, as a family, don't never feel discouraged of, like, still trying to relive those traditions and, like, engaging and finding a different community that maybe can help you connect with that.
Yes. I think for me, like, my parents were really young when they had me. They were like 18 and 20, so it was, I don't know, I think that they were still figuring out like what they wanted to do, so I never really got those traditions because my parents, I don't know, I feel like I lost some of it, like Dia de los Muertos, also because like religion played a role in that, like because I was raised in a Christian home. So I was just like, I didn't get that part, but that is something that I would like to start, something that I would like to do. So that's a great point. If you feel like maybe you're left out in the community, or maybe you don't connect to those things, like, I want to encourage you to take the time and look into them and starting them in your own family, in your own home, even with your friends. You could always do it in your dorm or in your apartment. Make your own little shrine. So, or learn how to make tamales. I love them. My grandma always comes through. So, yeah.
How would you describe your experience as a Latinx/Hispanic student on Chico State campus? Have we answered this one?
No, we haven't.
I actually transferred here from Humboldt State, so I'm from SoCal. I went to Humboldt for like 4 years, then transferred here, so it's my first semester, and I really haven't had I haven't really had many experiences, I guess, because I go to work, I go to like my apartment, and then that's pretty much it. So I can't really like speak on this topic, I
it's
feel.
okay. Yeah.
So if anyone else would like to answer it.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah.
It's okay. How would you describe your experience as a Latinx Hispanic student on Chico State campus? Okay, I think I'm a pretty good point person to touch on this one. So when I came up here my freshman year to Chico State for our first generation program, we were actually kind of coached on which housing options were available to us. I know there was a bunch of more affordable options, but my headset at the time was, first year, I want to be on campus. I want to just be thrown into it and just be kind of immersed in it. But doing so, I didn't realize how dorm life was going to be. And it's a really big culture shock. You go from, I went from like, being in a Mexican household, listening to like, Spanish music in the morning on Saturdays, meaning you're about to clean, to like just like a building full of a building full of white people, and then music you never heard before, and it's really eye-opening. I was also put in like a dorm with like mixed roommates, so I think the majority of them were Caucasian. So I was kind of like, I remember one time when I was putting on some Spanish music, they were like, oh, like what is that? Kind of like not really vibing with it. I kind of felt like, not embarrassed, but like weird about playing it. So then like I wouldn't play my Spanish music anymore out loud. I would kind of just listen to it on my headphones. That was a big thing for me. But I think that happening to me also helped me find other people who were like me. And those relationships, I don't know, for some reason felt so much more valuable because of that fact. Just knowing that we both experienced the same thing, we're both feeling kind of like isolated. It made those relationships just mean so much more.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I can relate. I was also, I started off my first year at Chico State in the dorms, and I was really thankful that like my roommate was like one of my close friends from back home, and like we have remained roommates and like good friends, because I think without her, I would have probably just gone home after a couple weeks, because like, yeah, it just feels really different. Like, I had a similar experience. Like, even though the person who told me this was someone like us, someone who looked like me, I was like putting up my flag and playing my like Mexican music or like Spanish music in general. And she was like, wow, so you're like really Mexican. And I was like, yeah, I guess. Yeah, I was like, aren't you too? Like, homegirl, we look the same. But that experience was like, it happened like on my first day. So I was like, wow, this is gonna be a rough ride. Like, but then, yeah, like he said, like it really does make your other relationships with people who understand you like that much valuable. Like, you find your little group of people and you like work things out. And so yeah, like being a Latinx student at Chico State is hard. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It is really hard.
Very hard.
And if you don't have the support, I don't know. It probably is reflected sometimes in our retention data.
Yes.
Like people that don't feel supported, that don't see people that look like them, that don't feel like professors like understand their experiences, they're more likely to go home or like go somewhere else or transfer or something. So yeah.
I think you were gonna go.
Yeah, I was gonna mention for myself, For sure. I didn't really live dorms on campus. Fun fact, there's like dorms off campus where majority of the students of color live. Not gonna lie, and it was really fun. But I definitely want to speak on behalf of like the academic aspect of being like Latinx on campus. You know, especially for GE classes, walking into some classes and being the only person of color can be so much, especially when it's like the topic revolves around your culture or policies that directly affect your life. Having to sit there and look at people in their face that really think your parents should just go to jail forever because of immigration or just different topics that those are topics, and I'm a poli-sci major, so I had a lot of interactions on this campus. Or just in general, I remember when I was a freshman, there was a lot of controversy around. It was like something happened with Trump. I mean, at that point, a lot of things happened with Trump. But just to be like in a space where it felt very invalidating, that there's a lot of people that really thought you weren't meant to be here. It's such a weight to carry. And then for me, at least, for that experience, I remember walking into my polls class and my TA, I was the only person of color. I remember saying like, oh, it's not okay for you to like do certain stuff. And my TA put me right on spot and was like, all the questions that people had like for me, and that felt draining, and I feel so attacked. So I definitely want to say like, it's hard being a Chicanx person, Latinx person. It's not impossible. Doesn't mean you won't thrive, but at the same time, just being aware of like who you're around, who you trust. Chico's very dark at night. There's no lights. Being brown, being a woman, walking around, even like, not to bring up the party scene, but even like, like downtown, if anyone drives downtown, you'll see the big Greek houses. And I know, like, we mentioned we're in Greek life, but we're like in multicultural Greek life, so it's very different. But like, I remember like trying to be included in things like that, like, and being told, well, we don't really want you here, So just like, making it known that you're here, and like it can be draining, especially having to be here 4 years. Like, it's a long time. But once, like everyone's mentioning, once you find your space, it is so much lovely, and you get to experience college life on a whole different level, because not only do you share sometimes those circumstances, but you have family to, I call my friends family, like family to really rely on. And like for me, like when my car breaks down, stuff like that, I tell my friend like, hey, what's up? Something like that, once you start getting those friendships going, it really truly feels like family.
Thank you for sharing. I just wanted to touch a little bit on that. For me, I'm a psychology major, and the psychology department, so most of my professors have been white. One of my classes, I have 2 in-person classes. And in those 2 in-person classes, one of them, I'm probably the only person of color in there. So it's really hard to show up and then kind of like learn and see like, for example, I'm going to share an experience. I work part-time, but I used to work full-time as a student and be a full-time student because I come from a low-income family, right? And my parents can't really support me and financially too much, so I support myself. And I was yawning because I just got off of work. I had a long shift, and I had class right after. I was yawning. The teacher, he called me out, and he was like, why are you falling asleep in the middle of class? And I was like, well, because I didn't say anything. I was like, okay, like, sorry, But in my head, I was like, oh, my God, like, I just got off of work. I had a long day. Like, I'm struggling. Like, why can't you see that, So I think that's really hard to go into class or go into space and you just not recognized for your lived experiences. You're working hard, you're trying to be a student, and you're trying to work because you need to support yourself, and they don't see that struggle because they probably didn't go through that same struggle. So it's hard, and what you said is true. A lot of students drop out because they don't connect to something or to someone. But I'm telling you, if you're a student here in Chico, you need to build community. Go look for it. One time somebody told me, one of my sisters, she was like, girl, the brown people, the people of color, they're here. You just gotta look for them, okay?
Yeah. And we're here for you.
And we're here for you, and we're gonna build community, but you have to reach out. Look for us. We're a little bit hidden in the library, not even in the library, but we're there. And multicultural organizations, whatever they are, they're also there for you for a reason. You build community, you build bonds. that they're for life. And, you know, I just wanted to share that. I'm really passionate about that because I was really hurt when he said that. I lost a lot of respect for him. And I'm not going to say who it was, but yeah, it was just like, oh my gosh. I dread.
On top of the stuff that happens back home.
Yes.
For a lot of Latinx students, we have stuff going on back home. We're the first gens.
Exactly.
We're the first of the family doing stuff. You still got to take care of your younger siblings, even though they're back home. You still have to deal with your mom calling you, ¿me puedes traducir esto? Like, literally, like, how do I do that? I was 5 years old trying to translate a legal document. That might be why I want to be a lawyer now. But
So, like, you don't have to explain to a teacher why you're tired. Like, dude, I had a long day, but whatever.
Yeah, like, we have complex lives, too. Complex identities, like...
we're not privileged. Like, most of these students probably are, so...
Yeah, like, really not everyone has the privilege of just being a student. And I mean, even just being a student by itself, being a first-generation student, like, you're the first one to do this, like... There's not someone you can call or like talk to and be like, hey, I need some help, because they're just gonna be like, well, échale ganas. You're like, okay.
Yes. So we still have time for a few questions, so we'll go around whoever's next.
So my question is, what is one thing you appreciate / love about your community? Okay, I think for myself, the community that I built here at Chico State, like I mentioned previously, my friends, I consider my family at this point. You know, I lived with my roommates and friends for all of COVID. I've lived with different people. And I think I would say I'm very family oriented and I love my culture. I love, you know, being engaged, literally waking up Sunday, a limpiar. My roommates, one of my closest friends, shout out to Marvin. I know you won't hear this. You know, we've made tamales together. We've not shared trauma, but we've shared experiences of what it means and the trauma we've experienced. And I think there's so much power in sharing and sharing stories specifically, sharing experience, because at that point you're not alone. Once your silence most of the time does not protect you, and I say that because I feel like a cycle gets repeated over and over when no one puts an end to it. So I definitely say that something I appreciate and love so much about my community is being able to be upfront and talk about it and be there for each other. Be there for each other in whatever it means that looks like for you. And know that sometimes for friends or just even if we're acquaintances, your capacity to give might not be the same as mine to receive or to give. So I think being able, I've learned and we've learned as my community, that being able to say it's okay if you don't want to talk right now. It's okay if whatever you're dealing with, as long as you're there for them. So I think just always being there for them regardless has helped me, and I love that so much about my friends and family here. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Is there a social issue that is currently affecting and or important to your community?
I can think of one. I think immigration is a big topic within our community, what's going on right now at the border with Haitian refugees, refugees, because let me just say their president was just murdered, and then they had a giant earthquake that cost a lot of casualties, and I think sometimes it's kind of easy for people from Haiti to be ignored, or people from Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, just because they don't look like other people from Latin America. I think it's an issue that's really important and that we should take the time to focus on, because I mean, this time it's people from Haiti, next time it could be people from Mexico, and it's just an ongoing issue no matter what administration we have, which is really sad because I don't know, a lot of people voted in the last election hoping for some change, especially on immigration within our community. I know I worked for a campaign and I was calling people, convincing them out to vote, but people aren't going to want to keep on voting if their policies or their ideologies aren't being reflected or listened to. So that's an issue that comes to mind for me.
I can go next. So in the Dominican Republic, it's still illegal to have an abortion even in cases of rape. There are activists right now who are occupying government buildings over there. Like they're camping out there, and that issue with abortion and like reproductive rights is still so like there's so much still going on over there, and I'm still like I can't believe that even in case of like sexual assault and harm, you're not allowed to terminate the baby.
Yeah.
It's like our bodies are still not our own.
Sadly.
To kind of like go off of that, I feel like there's one issue is like a lack of education on sexual, you know, things like, I don't know if it's like because of the culture or because of religion. Like my parents always just said like, wait till marriage, like do not like think about sex. Like I never had like the talk, you know, like it's something that's kind of like taboo, I guess, in like my family. But there's also like a lot of like Latina or Hispanic women that get pregnant really young, and a lot of the times it's just like lack of education or lack of resources for like condoms and stuff like that. You know, like no one like tells you like how to use them. They just say like, oh, you could get like infections, or like, you know, just trying to deter you from having sex instead of like openly talking about it, and then of different like sexual orientations and stuff like that. It's a big issue that people don't want to discuss, either because it makes them uncomfortable or because it's something that they don't believe in, even if it affects everyone.
Absolutely, and it affects our health too, because like to be honest, y'all, I did not get a gynecological exam till I was 18, because my mother refused. She refused to like have that like be seen and taken care of, because she's like, oh, I associate if you do that, you know. And it's like, it's not, Mom. I'm taking care of my bodily health.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like sometimes like religion gets thrown into that conversation where it's like you want to be this pure, like especially for women, like we got the whole Virgin Mary complex thing going on, like you got to be like her or somewhat, and like keep yourself like clean for marriage. And it's like, well, in this day and age, maybe that's not the most realistic thing ever with like things that are just going on. So like learning about like our reproductive system and our health, because it is our health, like Melly said, like we're just trying to take care of ourselves, so we got to make it less taboo to talk about.
And I think making it more diverse too, even for the queer community. I mean, like I feel like there are not, even if we do have resources for like reproductive health, it's very like just like very straight oriented, as opposed to heterosexual. So instead of being, you know, actually like diverse, like, you know, there are so many identities out there, like it should be more than just male and female.
I think that also brings up a good point about, and I want to put a trigger warning really quickly, but sexual assault as well, especially being prevalent in the Latinx community by like family members, and that's something we're not even supposed to bring up, we're not supposed to talk about, but it's so common, not only just for little girls, but also for little boys, especially with the machismo in our community. Men don't feel the right to be able to say that because it will steal their manhood, according to our community, you know. So I think that's a huge issue that me personally have barely gotten to like scratch the surface of it in college, but I think it's something that our community is facing and has been facing for, I want to say, decades, years, you know, centuries at this point. But it's so prevalent, and it's something that's definitely like affecting not only our generation, but the generations before us and the generations after us, and, you know, being vulnerable in that sense. But I think that's on a more minute level of like, you know, like a family having those conversations, and, you know, it could lead to something bigger. So I think that's a huge issue that we definitely face. And hopefully us as, you know, being first gen can remove that stigma. But it takes one person to be able to be strong enough to want to do that, you know?
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely something for that question. That's something like, what would you like to change in our community? I also feel like this whole idea of being feminine, if you're a female or a girl, or being masculine, I feel like for me that was something growing up that I wear a dress here and there, but that's something that it should be my choice to wear a dress the way I want. And I feel like a lot of the times in the Latinx community, if you're a girl, you have to dress femininely. And so like, I, for example, grew up with a lot of my uncles, so I am the t-shirt, you know, the shorts, like, I don't really care how I dress as long as I'm comfortable. And so, like, a lot of the things that I struggled with was with religion. It's like, when you go to church on Saturdays or Sundays, you gotta wear the skirts, and you gotta, and it's like, why, you know? Like, you shouldn't have to, you know, and going back to the whole feminine, masculine thing, the whole idea that men should not be allowed to cry or share emotions, I feel like the toxic masculinity, like, you know, that type of stuff gets carried down from generation to generation. And so, like, I do feel like that's something that we should really stop and, like, you know, look at it and change it.
Thank you for sharing. So we want to be mindful of everyone's time. So before we end, we do want to do one more question, and it's going to be, why do you think Hispanic Heritage Month is important to you and for others in your community? So anyone can go, or we can all share. How about we go left? We'll all share how we feel. So we'll go with Jordan.
Yeah, so I think Hispanic Heritage Month is important to me because, you know, it brings you a sense of community. Being here, I just feel like I'm not the only one that's thinking these things, or the only one on campus for that matter, but knowing that all of us are part of different organizations and we all have different connections, different networks, it just kind of shows a little sneak peek of how big the community really is. So I think just being to see how big it is now and what it could be once we're like more united is just a good feeling and a good thought.
I agree. I think I find value in Hispanic Heritage Month and the fact that I can learn not only from my own culture but from everyone else's culture, because like we do mention, it's often very, very heavily promoted, just like Mexico, but there's so many beautiful countries, and very Latinx, Hispanic is so big, such a big umbrella, that I personally love to see everyone else's culture, and also just to reflect that not everyone's experience looks the same, whether, like we mentioned at the beginning, but we do have shared experiences, but everyone's own experience is valid, and you're Latinx regardless, if you identify or not. So,
I agree with everything everyone said, and also it kind of makes you feel like you're a part of something bigger, which is nice, because like usually you don't, like, unless it's your birthday, you don't really celebrate like who you are, where you come from, and what you want to do in life. And I think this is just like a great way to put like Latinx and Hispanic people on a platform and really highlight everything that like we do for our community and for each other. And it's not just like an individual thing, it's something that like everyone can like participate in, and you know, not feel excluded.
Yeah, I feel like it's very important because, I mean, like, now you know who we are, you know? So, like, for those of you who don't know where your space is, who can't find your space, who can't find any friends or people who look like you, like, we see you, and, like, you are valid. Like, we are here to help you. Like, if you can't find your space, like, we will all help you find a space. Like, you are just as important as everybody else who's out there.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that we do need like Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month, because as we all know, we live under white supremacy, right? And like it loves to isolate, it loves to like make us feel less than who we are. And so having these spaces where we can celebrate our diversity within our culture of being Latinx is like almost like a punch in the face to like that white supremacist ideology.
Yes, I would 100% agree with Melis. Like, I feel like Latinx Heritage Month, or Hispanic Heritage Month, as it's more like commonly known, we really have to remember like what we're celebrating. We're celebrating like our Latin American countries being able to like be independent from like that white Spanish colonialist like rule, and like even though it affects us to this day after like so many years since it's happened, we're still unique. Like, they didn't intend for us to exist in this way, like, but we do. And like, it's worth celebrating. It's worth celebrating that we're a growing population in the US. Our voices are gonna be more listened to as like our numbers get up there with that 40%. But yeah, you know, just a time to like celebrate us as a collective. I feel like we're always like fighting against white supremacy, police brutality, machismo within our own culture, and like old traditions, religion. So it's like a month to kind of step back and see what we've done, look at our process, and like motivate us to move forward.
Thank you for sharing. I think for me, it's just a great opportunity to highlight who we are, and again to bring attention into like it's not just Mexicans, and it's not it's more than that. It's Hispanic, it's Latinx people, and it's a great time to also highlight like small businesses that are Hispanic owned, to bring up light into clubs, or bring light into like just things that are going on in campus that are for students. And I'm glad this is going on. I'm really happy that Haley, you brought this into the space and you gave this opportunity. And we are only a small representation of the Latinx community. We can't speak for everyone, but I'm glad that y'all were here today. Y'all showed up to share your experience, and y'all were brave enough to just, take up space today. So I want to thank you, and we're going to end it there. So thank you.
So for those of you who don't know, Fuerte is going to be an event to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month on October 14th in BMU 203 from 6 to 8. And so my goal with this event is that, there's a lot of faculty who we don't know are people of color. And so I have reached out to many faculty members and asked them and given them this platform for them to share their own struggles, their successes. And so basically, like, I've gotten Ana Flores, Jamile, Joanna from Adelante, and a couple other ones. And so basically, it's not only open to faculty members, but also students. It's just more like of a storytelling event because, our voice is our strength. They give us power. And so it's just like a safe place, like, to come and share our stories through Stereotypes.
Thank you.
So fun. Thank you.
There's gonna be conchitas and hot chocolate and like burritos and jarritos
Sign up.
and goodie bags.
Hey.